What is up, everybody? I am Andrew Cooper of Fantasy Alarm, joined here with my good buddy Jeff Paur of RT Sports. We're here on the Better Sports Network, and we're bringing you guys a special treat as we kick off fantasy football season, a high stakes draft, $2,000 buy-in league. Jeff Paur of RT Sports with me, giving everybody a little peek behind the curtain into a world they might not get to witness, right, Jeff? I mean, these leagues are no joke, huh?
Yeah, no joke. A lot of money you got to put up to get in these, and it's always interesting to see what these guys do. And as you see on the board, there's already been a curveball thrown our way, a little surprising, but it's fun to watch these for sure, Coop. It's just a lot of fun because these guys are putting up a lot of money, and they want to show everybody that they're the best out there. So should be a lot of fun tonight.
A lot of dough. Just to get you guys up to speed, this one, we've done this previously on a regular. Yeah, it's hard to say regular, Jeff, when you're talking about $2,000 buy-in leagues. But the last one was a regular PPR league. This one, Superflex league. So the settings for this one, no kicker, no defense. The other one was, your normal PPR with kicker, defense, 9 starters. This one's 9 starters, but you start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end. Then you have a flex, which is a QB, running back, tight end, and a super flex, which is the RB, wide receiver, tight end, QB spot. So you can start 2 total QBs in this league. And that's why I got like Patrick Mahomes going at 1 there. Pretty interesting. And then Justin Jefferson. Usually you see a lot of QBs, first 5, 6, sometimes 7 or 8 picks. But this guy likes JJ, Jeff. What do you think? In a 2 QB league, can you afford to take JJ there?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I misspoke there. I forgot this was a super flex as I was introducing this. So obviously Mahomes is the first overall pick. But yeah, I agree with you, Coop. I'm not sure I take Jefferson there. I just think there's more value going Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, whoever you like second. I'm just going that way personally. I'll let Jefferson slide a little longer. I think maybe after those top, we all know there's like a tier of like 7 of those elite guys we really like. Maybe after those guys go, I might start thinking about going Jefferson or Christian McCaffrey, whoever you have first off the board.
Right. I'm fully with you, man. Because the thing is, the people that don't take quarterbacks, in my experience, again, I'm excited to see what these guys do. These guys willing to put up the big money. But in my experience, even the teams that at the end of the first round, they take the Christian McCaffreys and the Jamar Chases, they circle back and take a QB in the next round. So you're easily, I mean, it's fairly rare to see a team not take a QB, but it does happen. And the stuff that comes back to you, even at the 2-3 swing there, can be kind of rough. But we'll see. I mean, 32 QBs aren't going to go in the first 32 picks, Jeff. So we're going to get everyone's going to get an opportunity to get somebody they can plant their flag on. And maybe this guy picking at 2 has a couple late round guys he really likes.
Exactly. Yeah. Strategy. It's always interesting to see where these guys fall that we see in our normal leagues going in the, early first round. They end up being 3rd round picks. And it's always kind of funny to watch that. But like you said, it should be a lot of interesting to see what these guys do that don't pick a QB first, to see how it shakes out for them the rest of the way. Like you said, maybe there's a guy they like later on that they feel that can produce those QB1 numbers. So that's why they went with Jefferson.
Yeah, and to all the people out there that, maybe you only play your hometown league or your work league and you're looking to start a new league up, these ones here, these Superflex ones, this is kind of the new PPR, Jeff. Like maybe we're dating ourselves a little bit, but you and I were around when PPR was a new thing. And a few of us were saying, that's too gimmicky. It's not going to stick around. And now that's the new standard. And now we're seeing people come out with the tight end premium and the 2 QB leagues. And honestly, if I was going to start a brand new league, it probably would be Superflex. What are your thoughts on that?
It is. You're correct, Coop. They're popular. Superflex has become more and more popular. They're even trying to get rid of the kicker and defense. I don't know if I feel good about that.
I don't like that
personally. I don't like it, but I think that's kind of the way that people are trying to go, unfortunately. But it is the new wave, and I think if you've never done it, it's just so interesting. It's just a different dynamic, your whole draft, just by taking a QB first. So like you said, if you've never done it before, even getting in a best ball league, you can do those on our site for $10. So if you want to get a little skin in the game and try something different, I highly recommend it. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Get in now on RT Sports. And actually, if you go to rtsports.com/fantasy alarm, you can use promo code alarm23 They'll match 100% of your deposit up to $200, and you can get in and play one of these this year. There's still time, still a couple days. Play one this year, see how you like it, and then if you do like it, then you bring it to your friends and family, and you got a leg up on them a little bit. You've at least played it before, so you bring the strategy out. So go check that out now. RT Sports. Promo code alarm23. They'll deposit 100%. They'll match 100% of your first time deposit up to $200, and you can get in and start playing formats like this. And you guys got all sorts of crazy formats over there. I know you have the $20 best ball championship, $20, and the winner of the whole thing gets $25,000. I know you guys have the cut line leagues. Give me a little rundown how those cut line leagues work, because we talked about it a little bit before the show, and I'm intrigued on how that one goes down.
Yeah, our King of the Mountain game's a little different. So you pick a QB, running back, and tight end slash wide receiver every week. You can only pick them once, though. So once you pick them,
Oh,
they're done. But there's a cut line every week, and it keeps getting lower and lower as the season progresses. Definitely a lot of strategy involved with this. It's fun. It's a $25,000 grand prize too, just $10 to enter, and it's 2 for $15. So it's really popular. We call it our King of the Mountain game. It's just a great contest. Something a little different. Like, a lot of people are branching out doing the Superflex like we're looking at now, but this is something different as well. And if you want to try something other than your standard leagues, I'd give this one a shot too. It's called King of the Mountain.
so now I thought it was like a guillotine type league. Now that I know what that is, Jeff, I'm a ringer in that format. I've never told you,
Oh,
but there's a league with experts called the Baby Bowl, where you can only use one player each week, and once you use a guy, you can't use him again. And I'll tell you what, I've actually won that outright before, out of like 200 analysts, Jeff. So this might be my
nice,
format here. This might be
nice.
my one. Yeah.
Go for
Uh,
it. I all for it. It's just $10 to get in, you win 25,000. So I'd do it, Coop.
I'll be getting in. I'll be getting in for sure. And I'll tell you what the secret for me was, I'm the tight end guy, right? That's my kind of cheat code. So I know which ones are the discounts, what the matchups are. I actually didn't even end up using like TJ Hawkinson, because I was saving the good guys for the end, didn't even need them. So and
Wow.
that's another reason why I don't like the getting rid of the kicker and the defenses, because as a tight end analyst, I start looking around. And the moment you get rid of the kicker, I say nothing because I'm not a kicker analyst. Next thing you know, now you're getting rid of the defense, right? And then once that's gone, what's the next position to go, right? It's the tight
Yeah.
end. So I got to protect my my namesake. I got to protect my job here. But anyway, enough about that format. Let's talk about this one, the Superflex League. First round here for those just listening. Say you throw it on in the background, you're hanging out. Here's how the first round broke down. Patrick Mahomes, standard pick. Justin Jefferson at 2, a little surprising, but I mean, it's not. It's never crazy to take Justin Jefferson. He's that good. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. That's a little more chalk. Jamar Chase off the board at 6. That's interesting. Lamar Jackson at 7. Then you have Bijan Robinson, first RB off the board. Not how I have it ranked, but Britt Flynn from Fantasy Alarm, very sharp analyst who was on with us last time we did one of these. That's how she has it ranked. So again, it's not crazy to me. Christian McCaffrey, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields. Those two very standard picks here, and I'm interested to see what Roddy Warren's going to do here at the last pick. But give me your thoughts on some of these. The QBs, I don't think there's a pick up there where I look at them and I say that's out of line or it's out of order or I have a problem with it. But Bijan going as the first RB, Jamar Chase going. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I can't take Bijan over McCaffrey just because of McCaffrey's receiving ability. I know Bijan's probably going to catch a lot of passes as well, but I still trust McCaffrey just a little more at this point in that offense. Chase, you've seen a little bit on our side at least, him going 2 at times, so it's not a huge shock to me. But again, I'm probably leaning all, like I mentioned, all these quarterbacks just went in this round. That's my cutoff. That's my one tier. Once it gets to Lawrence, it's it's down to the next tier. So I really would want one of those guys on my roster. So if I'm picking and I got a chance to get them in the first round, I would have pulled the trigger on them. But like you mentioned, this last pick as well, it's always interesting to see what you do on the turn because there's a lot of strategy involved. I mean, you don't pick again for a long time, and you got to wonder what these guys are going to do. Or they're going to go back to all these guys are going to go back to back QB. Some of these guys that don't have a QB, they're going to take at least one. So it's tough when you're on the turn like this in a super flex league, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is tough. You have to. I think Trevor Lawrence is the pick there for sure. And I actually don't mind going Eckler. I think I have a bit of a tier break there. Me personally, I'm taking both the Justins ahead of Chase, Robinson, McCaffrey, and honestly Jefferson as well. So I'm with you that me personally, I have and I technically have Justin Herbert ahead of Joe Burrow, but my advice to anybody out there is you're splitting hairs. Take whoever you want. For honestly, it was the calf injury that had me flip it. And the more I've looked at, Justin Herbert essentially having the second most passing yards in the league last year, despite having a low A dot, with Joe Lombardi calling the plays, and now Joe Lombardi's gone. I've kind of sold myself on just having Justin Herbert ahead of Joe Burrow, but those ones are so close. So for me, I'm taking Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Fields, all before I take Jefferson, Chase, Bijan, McCaffrey. For you personally, are you taking Trevor Lawrence ahead of the position players, or where do you draw that line?
It's Trevor Lawrence for me.
Yeah.
That's where the line's drawn. It's close though, and I agree with you about Burrow and Herbert. I have those. They're super close. I think it's a coin flip with those guys. I think they're going to finish with really similar numbers. If you have a preference, go with it. I have Burrow ahead of Herbert right now, but it's really close. I like those guys in that spot right after Hurts though.
Yeah. Now for you, I guess when we're breaking this down, again, splitting hairs, but if you with certain guys at this top level, if you rank one guy just a couple spots higher, you're going to get him in every draft, and you rule yourself out on so many guys. Like we all kind of like CeeDee Lamb, right? If you rank CeeDee Lamb as your wide receiver 2, you're going to have him in every draft. It's that close. Where if you just move him up just that much, it's huge from wide receiver 5 to 2. So for some of these guys, like for instance, are you taking Burrow and Herbert ahead of Lamar Jackson and Fields, or do you like the mobile QBs? And for those listening, the scoring format for this, it's 4-point passing touchdowns here, 6-point rushing. There are, there's the rest of it is all pretty standard as far as the scoring would go. 25 yards for a point passing, 10 for rushing and receiving. But it is a 4-point passing league. So for you, does that matter at all? And do you like going with the mobile guys?
I do like going with the mobile guys. I have Jackson. I do have him ahead of Burrow and Herbert, but not Fields. I still have him behind those guys. Jackson, he really intrigues me this year. We've heard it before. They're going to move their offense more pass heavy, so we'll see if that happens. I'm still not sold on that. Either way, he's just so good running the ball, and he's got 1,000-yard potential. He's done it in the past, been an MVP, so I still trust him more, at least more than Fields at this point. But I do have him ahead of Herbert and Burrow. And you have to like the Russian QBs just because their floor's high on a weekly basis because of their ability to produce on the ground as a QB. So you always have to value them a little more.
Yeah, that's where I'm at almost exactly. Oddly enough, you and me, it's kind of the conservative approach, but I do have Fields a little behind just because I've watched Lamar Jackson lead this league in passing touchdowns and be the MVP of the league. Whereas Justin Fields, I haven't quite seen that passing from him. I've seen the rushing from him. But yeah, there's with this new offense, Todd Monk and air raid, maybe Lamar Jackson gets back to that MVP caliber level, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you said that about just moving your rankings just a little, and it changes the whole dynamic. We did a $10,000 draft over the weekend. I watched that. Someone took Tony Pollard with the 5th overall pick. Now they were not going to get him on the way back, so they have him ranked higher, and it just, like you said, it changes everything, and that kind of threw us for a loop a little bit when we saw that. But that's going with your guy, and that's what that owner did. Took Tony Pollard.
Putting 10 grand on it. That's
Yeah.
that's a little different than doing in your hometown league, like
Exactly.
that's maybe you see drafts like that in downtown Dallas, but I'm not sure. A lot of the ones I've been, he's been a second round pick. But you're right. If you're picking at 5, you can't guarantee he's going to come back. In this league, in this one right here, even in Superflex, he didn't come back, right? So it wasn't happening there. So you got to get your guys. And I will say, guys like Tony Pollard and Nick Chubb, this year, this offseason, I've really seen a separation between who both in the analyst community and the draft community and across the board, who has take lock, who is honestly just a bit of a hater, I would say, versus who is willing to kind of side with what their own previous analysis was. I saw so many analysts say, and myself included, that I didn't like Tony Pollard because Zeke Elliott was there. Now that Zeke's gone, I'm in on Pollard, right? And same thing with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, where now we're seeing people come around, but I'm also seeing a lot of people that aren't coming around. And my question is, was it actually the Kareem Hunt and Zeke issue, or did you just not like the player? Because now that those guys are gone, I've noticed Nick Nick Chubb. I mean, where is he? Why isn't he off the board? Right? Like everyone has always said all along that's the one reason. Well, what's the reason now?
It's true. When I look at Nick Chubb, and normally in most drafts he goes at the end of the first round if it's a normal
Right.
league, he's as safe as it gets in my opinion. He should see an uptick in catches, maybe not a ton just because it's not his MO, but he hasn't really been given the chance. But either way, he's going to get the rushes every week, plays behind a good offensive line. I think their offense should be better with Watson there for a full season, so he could get more goal line carries as well. But I look at him, and you want to go safe, RB1, Chubb is that all day for me.
Yeah, I had basically I had 5 guys I considered to be my safe guys. It was, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, and Nick Chubb. In my regular 1 QB leagues, whoever I got in the first round, I didn't care. I really didn't care which one came to me. Which kind of made me want to have later picks in the draft, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'll take whoever it is, and then like Devontae Adams next round or whatever comes. So I have no problem with it. And then once Zeke Elliott signed with the Patriots, I actually moved Tony Pollard up into that group. I was worried, and for him and Austin Eckler, I was worried that the teams were just going to add another ground and pound player. And I will say for the Chargers, I'm a little surprised they didn't add a ground and pound guy, just given how the season ended last year, right? Against the Jaguars, they're winning, they're out in front. All they had to do was run when the other team knew they were going to run, and they couldn't really do it. And if you go back and look, Austin Eckler has actually quietly never had a 1,000-yard rushing season. Neither has Alvin Kamara. It's not their game. Are you surprised at all by that? And do you think there's a chance that a guy like Leonard Fournette or some of these guys sneaking around, they might do something about it?
I think it would make sense because you look at their backup situation too. I think they thought they had something with Spiller when they drafted him, but he hasn't panned out, and Kelly hasn't been that great as well. So I don't think the backup situation is very good as well. So it would make sense. I thought an Elliott signing would have been a good one for the Chargers for sure, but who knows? And I'll tell you right now, Coop, if you look at this second round, I would have never in a million years said there's going to be 1 QB taken in the second round. Superflex. Holy cow.
They did it on purpose to make us look stupid, Jeff. They absolutely did it on purpose to make us look dumb here, because we said it was going to happen and then it totally didn't. So here's the second round. Again, if you're just kind of hanging out listening, the guy at the swing took Trevor Lawrence, and then he started with Austin Eckler, and coming back, Saquon Barkley, Tyreek Hill. The Christian McCaffrey drafter took Deshaun Watson, so he did take a quarterback there. And then Tony Pollard, Stephon Diggs, Nick Chubb, CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So there's 3 teams right now that do not have a quarterback yet: a Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown team, a Jamar Chase, Nick Chubb team, and a Bijan Robinson, Tony Pollard team. I know you and I typically wouldn't draft a team like this, but of those 3, which one are you feeling best about?
Ooh, man, Jefferson Brown, that's some combo. Chase and Chubb's good too.
Yeah.
Man, I guess Chase and Chubb just because I was talking up Chubb earlier, but I think you can't fault many of those duos there. Those are all pretty good. Who do you got?
I like the Bijan Pollard team, just because if I'm gonna take a position that's not quarterback, I want to get some scarcity. I've played a lot of these drafts, and I know you have to start 3 wide receivers here, which really does give a little more juice to the wideouts. But I've done a lot of these, and when you put the super flex in there, when you put the tight end premium in there, and this one is not tight end premium, but when you do those specific types of formats, that's the position that I feel like I get the best value on later. I feel like in the 9th, 10th round, and we'll see here, because we were wrong about the second round, but we'll see what comes back. But I feel much better about what's there. Just to give you guys a quick update, the guy that took Mahomes at 1 and Amon-Ra St. Brown, he made the play on Travis Kelce here. The big news today was that Travis Kelce tweaked the knee, hyperextended the knee. It's not ACL related from what I've heard. Might be PCL. The word is that he might not play this week, and we'll have to see what the long-term outcome is. So no, obviously not good news here, but if he can get away with it, that's a pairing that you don't usually get in a draft like this, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I was really intrigued to see where he went. That was one of my things I wrote down for the draft. I want to see where Kelsey goes. First draft I've seen since the news broke, but you're right. I mean, if he just misses a game or two and you can tread water while that happens, that's quite a combo to have to start your drafts in a super flex league for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to circle back and look at some regular leagues because I think in this particular one, the idea of taking Mahomes at 1, it's real tough to let Kelsey go by,
Yeah.
Whereas in a single QB league, Kelsey's typically the first one off the board of the two of them. So, it could push him down farther. But I think, that's something to think about where Kelsey and Mahomes, two great players. If you do take Patrick Mahomes, the temptation to take Travis Kelsey, even with the injury news, it's too strong. So I don't think Kelsey really, as long as Mahomes is going in the second or third round, I don't think Kelsey can go much farther than the fourth or fifth, right?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's going to fall too much farther than that. Not with the news it broke. I mean, it doesn't sound like you said. It sounded like they said that ACL was still intact. So
Right.
hopefully he just misses a game or two. I'm really intrigued at this point too, as well, with this second team that we mentioned, Jefferson and Brown. Now they took Devontae Adams, so 3 premium receivers, but you have 10 picks behind you, and then they're going to come back. So it's 20 picks until he picks again without a QB in a super flex league.
He's
Man, I
got it.
don't know. I don't know if I can do that.
He's got somebody. He's got somebody in his back pocket, I bet. And you and I, the people that haven't watched it, if you want to watch a single QB league, we have one right on this channel. It was you, me, and Britt Flynn, and in that one, we watched a guy wait until. I mean, that one was crazy because he didn't take a quarterback until the 13th, 14th round, and then he took 3 in a row. So, and he got, in that one, he got Aaron Rodgers, he got, I believe, Brock Purdy as well. So again, in single QB, it's possible. But in this one, just based on the way the second round went, there'll be some guys there. So if you have one ringer, right? Like if you really love Brock Purdy or you really love, I don't know, Mac Jones, then you can play this game a little bit, right? You can say, hey, I'm gonna load up on best talent available, and then I'll grab whoever's there from the middle range, Jared Goff or Kirk Cousins, and then I'll get my guy, and if you're right, it could pay off big, right?
Yep, I think you're right. But the way I look at it too, though, is that Mahomes, he averaged 27 points per game last season, and you get a guy that averages 21. That's a bigger difference at QB, than it would be at receiver or at running back between, the elite guys and the guys farther down the draft board. So that scares me. I don't know if I can't go much longer if I'm that team. If the guys I want are coming up in the next couple of rounds, I think I have to pull the trigger on at least one.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing, your team looks so good right now when you're drafting them. And honestly, when I do these, my brain, I have my reptilian brain just can't wrap my head around like the quarterbacks and stuff until I set my lineup. Then when when the draft is done and I set my lineup and I'm sitting there with Justin Herbert and Deshaun Watson, then and the matchup shows up next to the other guy's team, that's when I feel good about it. But in these drafts right now, like he's looking at his team with Jefferson, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, he's probably feeling great. Let's see how he feels once later on when his starting 2 quarterbacks are, Goff and Adam. Well, again, we'll have to see. I'll tell you what, a couple of these teams are willing to go a bit of a quote unquote hero QB here, where no one's really taken a second. No one has taken a second QB yet. Yeah,
we do not have a second QB off the board, which is just shocking to me because I've done a lot of super flex leagues this year and I have not seen that yet after 2 rounds, or after we're almost through 3, halfway through 3 rounds, and still not one team with 2 QBs.
They're and honestly, they're kind of bailing out these teams. Like this guy,
they are
right here, slam dunk in here. If he takes a QB here, like a Tua or somebody like that, man. They're kind of getting bailed out, so we'll see. There he goes, Daniel Jones. So if you were drafting in that spot, taking a QB, is Daniel Jones the guy you would have taken, or do you have it ranked differently?
I do not have him ranked right there. Let me take a look. I'd probably either go Prescott or Kirk Cousins in that spot if I had to pick. I think it's close call. I mean, you can make a case for Jones, definitely, though. I think just because of his rushing ability and that offense kind of being on the rise with Dable, doing a good job with that team last year. I worry about the receivers, obviously, but still
Right.
they have Darren Waller, imaginative head coach. So I don't think you can fault that pick too much. I think there's a lot of similar options at that point, but I probably would have leaned Cousins or Prescott.
Yeah, and I've been kind of one thing I do like to use, and this some advice for folks out there is I'll use the gambling and prop bet market to kind of help not make my rankings based on them, but gauge where the experts of all experts are on this stuff, and gauge where the market is and the sentiment is. So I'll go around and take a look. I'll say, hey, Daniel Jones, ran for 700 yards last year. Let's see where the books have it, right? Let's see where the Vegas is saying. And I got to say, Jeff, a lot of the books are saying they have him set at 575, 600 yards. I mean, I'll take that all
Interesting.
day long.
Yep.
I'll take it all day. So they're saying Daniel Jones 700 yards, not a fluke. That he is a dare I say rushing Q. There's some guys are mobile QBs. Daniel Jones perhaps a rushing QB where there's a difference there. So interesting to say the least. And some interesting picks here. Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers off the board before a couple guys you and I both like. You mentioned Dak Prescott. I mentioned Tua. Um, kind of wild. Let's see if the Tyreek Hill drafter takes Tua here in this part. Justin Herbert,
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill, Tua would be a nice super flex start, would it not?
Yeah, I agree. And then he could probably still get a really good running back on the way back if he wanted to, or go receiver again. I would like that start. And I think we're going to see more teams take their second QBs here coming up, at least on the way back in round 4. I'm anxious to see what's left for team 2 there when he
Yeah.
comes to pick.
Right. Yeah. They honestly, really, they should make him again. You don't want to go too far out of your rankings, and you never want to really spite pick, but they should make these guys pay because if you let him get players like that, and then you chase the wide receivers yourself and let the QBs fall, you're playing right into his hands. You're playing right into those people's hands. You cannot let them get away with that. I don't like to chase when there's a run going. I really don't like to chase. I would rather get the best player, best tier of a different position than come back. So, but again, crazy jam there. Not going with Tua, even though he has Tyreek Hill. What do you think about Tua this year?
I mean, as long as he's on the field, I'm good with him. I think that
Right.
offense, they'll suit it to him well. Mike McDaniel did a great job with him, getting the ball out quick. I I do think he lacks a little arm strength, but I think he showed last year that he still can throw some good deep balls. So I think that might be overblown a little bit at times with Tua, pushing the ball down the field. But as long as he's upright and he's not taking hits, and it looked encouraging seeing him take some of those hits in the preseason as well, seeing how he's rolling, trying to avoid contact with his head. So that's a positive for him. It does scare me a little bit that he might be, a hit away from maybe not playing for a really long time.
So you're saying that the jujitsu might be paying off?
It
That
might be, I think.
yeah. Hey, I'll tell you what. I mean, the thing is, we've seen both sides of this coin. We've seen guys like, I know it's a tough topic to talk about in our industry, but hey, when you have $2,000 on a team, you have to think about all the possible outcomes, all the possible scenarios. Like we've seen a guy like Chris Borland just in the offseason just hang it up, right? And just say, I don't want to do it. And we've also seen guys on the flip side. I've seen Devontae Adams get 3 concussions in a very short span, and everyone was worried about whether the whole situation. And then since then, he's been nothing but a super mega star, right? Like
Yep.
Brandon Cooks, same thing, where people were like, "How long is he going to play? Can he keep it up?" Well, turns out that he can play for a very long time and have a lot of 1,000-yard seasons. So for me personally, in a $2,000 league, maybe that's where you have a little pause, but I'm not really fading them. I'm not really fading to over trying to project injuries or predict injuries that haven't happened yet. And it's the same thing with people did it last year with Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey. They tried to say, well, Christian McCaffrey's going to get hurt, so I'll take Jonathan Taylor. How'd that work out, Jeff?
Not so great. Nope.
Not so great. So same thing with I personally, like I said, a tight end guy with a guy like Darren Waller. He's healthy right now, and I know he's had some injury issues, but all offseason people were drafting George Kittle ahead, and I was saying, well, if you're fading one guy because you think he might get hurt, what about this guy who's missed games 4 years in a row? Are you going to fade that guy? And they were like, no, George Kittle, blah blah blah. Well, Kittle's already actually hurt right now, so maybe, in my opinion, the way I look at it is I try not to fade currently healthy players because they might get hurt if anything, maybe use it as a tiebreaker. But personally, playing the game of Doctor Fortune Teller, I've never been particularly good at it, Jeff. So I'm just going to leave that one up to, maybe if somebody like Edwin Porras, right, like a injury expert, fantasy expert, if he comes out and says that he sees something, then I'm like, okay, maybe this guy's actually hurt, but I just can't play the guessing game. I can't play the guessing game, Jeff. What about you? Are you?
I think it's it's a really fair point, Coop. But I think the main thing would be just I look at age more than anything, just because
Right.
I feel like, especially with running back, we know how that works, and even receivers, it seems like there's a sharp decline after they hit age 30. Kelsey's been an outlier at tight end, but I think age is probably more of a factor that I really examine more than anything else when it comes to these players.
Truly, truly. And yeah, it's harder to bounce back. You get these accumulation injuries, right? So yeah, something to think about there. Third round is done here. As we mentioned, Travis Kelsey came off the board. A guy I'm pretty high on, higher than the rest of the industry, is Devontae Adams, which me having to defend Devontae Adams this offseason seems crazy. Does it not, Jeff? Like, to be like, this guy's a good football player. It's so funny too. They're like, people come to me and they're like, "Oh, can Jimmy G throw the deep ball or whatever?" I'm like, "Have you seen like the reception perception route tree, or have you seen this guy play? There's not one route that Devontae Adams can't run. Whatever passes Jimmy G can throw, those are the routes that you have your mega star Devontae Adams run. Are they not? Like,
Yeah,
it's crazy to be like, oh, he can't throw the deep ball. Okay, name one route that Devontae Adams can't run. They'll
I
figure
agree.
it out.
He is not just a deep ball threat. He does it all. He can,
Right.
run underneath. He can work out of the slot. He can work the sidelines. He can turn screen passes into big plays. He's a complete receiver, kind of like Jefferson.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, whatever he can throw, they're going to be going. So anyway, Kelsey, Devontae Adams, Jalen Waddle, who still a little bit of injury question. You got to keep an eye on that. But, I love this player. I'm still taking him in the spot. Josh Jacobs off the board, Cooper Cup. Man, that is a scary pick. Rob Bate, do you think this is Rob's only $2,000 team if he's taking a shot on Cooper Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I guess some people want to just, want to take some chances, and that's a guy that can be top 5 overall if all's going well. But man, I don't know if I can do that. If I'm spending this kind of money, I'm letting somebody else take Cup. I just think he's big concern going. I don't like going into the season with these soft tissue injuries. That really, like Kittle as well. You mentioned him, but that really kind of scares me. The soft tissue injuries as the season gets going is just not a good recipe in my opinion.
Yeah, yikes. Not to mention Cooper Cup flying across the country to go to see a
Yeah.
special doctor in Minnesota. Does that sound like a guy who's day to day to you, Jeff?
Not really.
Doesn't
He's looking for something to get this remedied quicker, sooner than
Yeah.
later. Like you said, that does not sound good.
Day to day is like an ice bath. It's not a plane ride, So that's where I'm at with that. Cup, I'll let somebody else draft him until it starts getting crazy. Until it starts getting to the point where I look around and I say, 8 games of Cooper Cup is better than 17 games of so and so, which does happen in round 6, 7 or so, right? Like
Yeah,
there's always a line.
he could still get 70 catches in 8 games in that
Yeah.
offense, knowing him. So, I mean, at some point you gotta just do it. You can't say you're never gonna draft a guy because there's at some point where you're gonna pull the trigger if you have to.
Yeah, he missed more than half the season last year, and he was a wide receiver too in fantasy
Yep.
football, that's crazy to me. I mean, if you take the half the season that Cooper Cup had and the half the season that Keenan Allen had, you had the wide receiver 2 behind only Justin Jefferson. So you can make it happen. It's just less. It's not ideal. You got to piece it together and survive. So Cooper Cup, Daniel Jones, Chris Olave off the board, the Bijan. So to again, if you're just listening, Jamar Chase and Nick Chubb, the guy that started with those 2 guys, he took Daniel Jones as his first QB, and the guy with Bijan and Pollard took Kirk Cousins as his first QB. Then it went Aaron Rodgers, Devonta Smith, Travis Etienne, your guy Dak Prescott, and that rounds it out here. And I just want to note that I had mentioned the guy with Tyreek Hill should consider Tua with his pick there. It almost came back, and the guy right before him took Tua. So didn't let him get away with it. He almost got away with it where he would have been playing with house money a little bit, but yeah. And he didn't take his second QB there. He took Ramondre Stevenson instead. So still got a couple teams out here with only one QB through 4 rounds. There's a couple already that have said, hey, you know what? next round I'll figure it out.
Yep, exactly. And there's one team without a QB yet still, and I don't think
Mm.
that's going to be the case much longer. I think he's going to pull the trigger with this pick.
Yeah, I think he's got to. And there's some names here, man. There's some
Yeah.
names here. If he wants to play it really safe, I think probably the safest QB left is a guy like Jared Goff, right?
Yep.
Doesn't hurt. And I was just going to mention the high risk QB, Anthony Richardson. He
That's who I
goes.
was thinking he might be thinking about
Yeah.
taking. That was my thought. Like, I feel like a lot of guys that wait on a QB want to get Anthony Richardson because they think he's going to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year. I don't know if I'm buying that, but I think that's what a lot of people like to take when they're waiting.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if you're gonna bet your whole season on something, it's an interesting bet. It's an interesting bet to say because in single QB, it's it's not that hard. You draft. I actually, Jeff, in my hometown league, my big hometown league, 14 team league, I took my first QB that I took was Anthony Richardson, and my first tight end I took was Dalton Kincaid, and I'm not starting either of them week one. I circled back. I saw your face when I said that
That's funny.
double rookie. I circled back and I took Jared Goff. And then I circled back and I actually also took another rookie tight end, Sam Laporta. And I look at, the matchup with the Chiefs and the 54-point over under, and I just say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna start safety in Goff and throw Laporta in there and not worry about Kincaid versus the Jets and all that. So, you don't always have to start the first guys you draft. I draft for upside and then I set my lineup based on matchup. That's how I play it. So,
I've seen that a lot with Anthony Richardson this year, and I think it's a smart strategy. It's a guy that could be end up being capable of being really, really good, but maybe it takes him a little bit to get going. And the QB position's deep. So, like you said, you look at these early season, early week matchups, and there's guys that have better ones than others. And I think it's a smart play. I like that strategy. There
yeah,
goes golf.
there you go, Sid. So, and there it is to the team, right? The team with three keeps it. I like that. Not only did he get, oh, actually, sorry, he had AJ Brown, not Amon-Ra St. Brown. I was gonna say maybe get a little stack action, but hey, it could have been way worse.
Yep.
I would have pictured a guy waiting until the end of the first round to take his QB. That could have been a nightmare, but it actually worked out pretty well for him, especially if he can come back and take somebody that he's confident in here. We'll see if maybe he has somebody he's willing to reach for to kind of plant the flag on, or if he's willing to just piece it together later. So will
Yep.
be interesting to see coming around here. But I'll give everybody a quick recap. Round four, just about in the books. One more pick that will be done by the time I get there. So came back Keenan Allen, Tua, as we mentioned, Ramondre Stevenson, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Geno Smith, T. Higgins. Surprisingly late for T. Higgins. Nice pick there for Rob Base. Anthony Richardson, Joe Mixon, Jared Goff, and then the first team that took Mahomes, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Travis Kelce is going to finish the roundup now momentarily, and we'll let you know who they take here. But for this round, Jeff, 4 rounds in, pretty solid look at things. Which team are you feeling? Which team looks most like a Jeff Paur team to you?
Yeah, it's going to be one that has two QBs. So I would say almost team 12. I like Trevor Lawrence, Eckler, Prescott, and Allen. I think that's a good core. I probably would have went Higgins over Allen though, personally. Like you said, I thought that was pretty good value for team 5 there to get Higgins to pair with Burrow, especially. But for me, if I'm putting my name on a team, it's going to be a team that probably has 2 QBs after 4 rounds and an anchor at running back and receiver. And I think team 12 probably has the one that fits the mold best for me.
Yeah, it's very well rounded. He needs the char. I mean, he's got Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen, so
That's true.
needs the Chargers to do what they do, but it's not a bad bet, right? Like
Yeah.
I already said that I love Justin Jefferson. Me personally, sorry, not Justin Jefferson. I was Justin Herbert. I love Justin Herbert to potentially lead this league in pass yards. When I look around at these teams, honestly, there's some teams that started off the way I would, but didn't make some of the picks that I would. Right, like I would have really liked the Fields Barkley team if he had taken, the Herbert Tyreek Hill team if he had taken Tua there, but he didn't. I think for me, if I'm gonna plant my flag on one of these teams, it would probably be the one with probably still the one with Herbert and Tyreek Hill and Devonta Smith. But I don't know. The Ramondre Stevenson pick isn't one I would make. This has been an interesting draft for sure, and it's why it's always good to get a look at what some of these guys, these high stakes guys, these guys willing to do things differently, to take big risks. It's pretty cool, kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely interesting. Like you said with Stevenson, I don't know I have very little stock of him this year.
Me neither.
I'm concerned just with the lack of goal line work, probably with Elliott. But even before then, I don't know. I just didn't know if he was a fit to be an elite back. I didn't think he could repeat what he did last year. I think he'll get the catches, but not nearly as many. I think the offense might be a little more balanced because they actually have an offensive coordinator calling plays now. So
Right.
who knows what he's kind of doing. So I'm just not convinced on Stevenson. He's one of the players I have kind of avoiding.
Yeah, it's funny that Matt Patricia was the offensive coordinator last year. And then did you see what his title is this year, Jeff?
No, I did not.
So the offensive coordinator for last year was retained by the team, and now he will be the senior defensive assistant. It's just crazy, man. So really, really, really interesting. But I digress, man. I'm a Patriots fan, and I'll tell you what. I agree with you that I don't think it's what the Patriots want to do. I don't think they want to have one back getting all the work. And last year, I don't think they actually wanted to do it. If you look at the first game, Ty Montgomery actually played more snaps in that game than Ramondre Stevenson, and he played 20 out of the backfield, and he had 4 targets. I truly think that if he didn't get hurt, then maybe that's how the season would have went. If you look at the history of Bill Belichick being with this team, he's never had a running back up until last year get 200 carries and 35 receptions. So I'm with you that I'm just not taking Ramondre here, especially because they went out and they went and got another guy.
So I was even surprised today, being a Patriots fan, that you are, Coop, that Coach came out and was speaking well of Mac Jones. Did you hear that?
I know you love to hear it.
Yeah, you did. That was kind of out of the norm for Belichick there, but he was talking him up a little bit. So I'm kind of intrigued by that. What's your thought?
Usually he only says nice things about the bad players on other teams, right? Like
true.
not even on our team, but he'll come out and, like, if there's a player on another team that everyone's dogging, he'll come out and talk for 20 minutes about why that player is actually amazing, right? Like that's his style. So yeah, seeing him say good things about our own players, besides Matthew Slater and the former Nick Folk, right? Like besides like
That's funny.
I watched him talk for a full 5 minutes about Nick Folk like a year ago. And my favorite part was that Belichick, you could tell he was mad at himself. Because he's like, Nick Folk taught me. He's like, he taught me a few things. I can't believe I didn't think of them myself. About certain stadiums where you kick the ball at certain heights and the wind hits it. He's like, you could see Belichick was like, I can't believe I didn't think of that. Like he was like disappointed in himself, but he was glowing about Nick Folk. So
that's
pretty pretty interesting stuff for those guys. But yeah, I could listen. Like I really hope that when he does hang him up, that he finds some way to share his knowledge in a way that will be entertaining to the rest of us, whether that's commentating or writing a book or doing something, because he's just a genius, right?
He is fascinating to listen to. I don't know. Did you watch the coach special with Nick Saban that he did? I can't remember what that was called.
I think it's on Netflix, but I have not. I haven't
really like, if you like to listen to him, you got to watch it. It's really both of them. Like, I was never a huge Nick Saban fan, to be quite honest with you, but I kind of had a different impression of him after watching those two together. It's really, really good.
I'll check it out, man. I look at, because I love watching football nerds nerd out on football. I mean, that's my favorite thing to do. I love talking ball myself. So to watch something like that, I'll definitely have to get in there and look. But yeah, I mean, like just watching him do the top 100 all time players list and watching him talk about guys like Marion Motley, who I honestly, to be honest with you, I knew nothing about until hearing him, talk about him. So just cool stuff, man. So yeah, we're coming around on the end of the 5th round here. The team at the swing, they took DK Metcalf and then came back with Deebo Samuel. Then you have Najee Harris, Kenny Pickett. So the team that started 3 wide receivers and took Jared Goff, he says, nope, not double tapping QB. I'm going right back to work. Took his first running back. So Kenny Pickett after that, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, Mark Andrews, DJ Moore, Christian Watson, James Cook, and 3 more picks left in this round. But that's where we stand now. And tight end looks like it's readily available. With
Yep.
Travis Kelce still going early to the Mahomes drafter, but Mark Andrews in the 5th round, that's pretty decent value, no?
Yeah, that is good value. Only 2 tight ends off the board, some really good ones left as well, like you mentioned. I think a couple of these teams, a team that just picked, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they took a tight end maybe on the way back. 'Cause I think receivers starting to thin out a little bit, and you got a lot of similar options. I always advocate tiering your rankings, and I think this is a good reason why. So you don't reach for certain people and try to get better ones at different positions if you have to. But I'm kind of intrigued to see what these last couple picks are, to see what these teams do, especially with, like you mentioned, so many good tight ends still out there.
Yeah, you have to wonder if, Travis Kelce's banged up, Mark Andrews was already banged up, George Kittle is also dealing with a adductor injury, and honestly, Darren Waller's been hurt. Kyle Pitts got hurt last year. Maybe people are just looking at it and saying, "Hey, you know what? If I'm going to fade something, it's going to be tight end." So we'll have to see what happens here. But already so far, uh, that seems to be the case. Teams focusing on QB and wide receiver. 3 wide
I
receiver and a flex and a super flex. People are taking wide receiver pretty seriously here.
Yeah, receivers really going off the board quick. I mean, we're in round 5, and you already have Hopkins going and Watson. These are guys that normally get pushed down a little farther in many of the drafts that I've watched, at least. So, like you said, though, something has to give when these QBs are taken earlier as well. So some of these teams are kind of punting the tight end position, so it's pushing all of them down a little bit. But receiver, not so much. That's still getting drafted quick.
Right. And I'll tell you what, folks out there, if you're looking at this draft board and you're saying what Jeff and I are saying, which is, hey, you know what? I get it, but it's not what I would do in drafts, right? And if you like your strategy and you think you can compete, get on over to RT Sports, use promo code ALARM23 and get set up. They'll match 100% of your deposit up to $200. This one's a $2,000 buy-in, but you don't have to play $2,000 buy-ins if you don't want to. You guys have drafts for as little as 5, I believe, going all the way up to, as you mentioned, $10,000, which is crazy. But yeah, use promo code ALARM23. They'll match up to 100% of your deposit, up to $200. And just for the folks out there, when it comes to playing fantasy football, playing any of these stuff, there's a certain limit that you might hit that, $2,000 is a lot of money to some people, maybe more than for some people than others. If you feel like you have a problem, you feel like you're doing a little too much gambling, a little too much playing fantasy and stuff, there are people that can help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Give those guys a buzz. Talk to them about what's going on. See maybe if you need a little help or just to maybe confirm that you're doing all right. And those guys will help you out. So definitely don't feel like you have to be alone in that kind of stuff. Give them a buzz, 1-800-GAMBLER if you feel the need. But yeah, so we finished up the 5th round here. Chris Godwin, DeAndre Hopkins, and as you mentioned, TJ Hawkinson. Was that the guy you were picturing in your mind as the next tight end off the board, or did you have somebody else in mind, Jeff?
No, it would have been Hawkinson for me. I like him a lot this year. They just gave him that huge deal, probably overpaid him, but that's another story. But I still think he could end up being second in targets behind Jefferson. I'm still not totally convinced Addison's going to have a huge season as the wide receiver number 2. Hawkinson just had so many looks and had a great rapport with Cousins. So I still think he's going to have another really big season this year in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, he's to me. I have Kelce in his own tier, whenever was healthy at least. Kelce in his own tier, Mark Andrews in his own tier, and then in the next tier, you got to figure out how risk averse you are. And I think if you want the safest possible guy, it's TJ Hawkinson because he gives you access to both worlds. In my research on tight ends, I've kind of figured out that you actually don't need to lead your team in targets to have difference making upside. In fact, the best tight end season of all time, the player that had it didn't lead his team in targets that year. It was Rob Gronkowski on our Patriots. Scored 18 touchdowns. I think that was a bit of the cheat code on that one. But in that season, Wes Welker got like 170 targets. So it's entirely possible to be, as long as you're a top 2. Now, I say top 2 because I went back and I looked at the top 50 tight end seasons of all time, and there was only one in there essentially that was a guy that wasn't 1 or 2 on his team. It was Tony Gonzalez on a team with Roddy White and Julio Jones. So that's where you need to live, top 2. TJ Hawkinson, at least, he has access to that potentially being a top 2 on his team, which very few guys are even in the conversation, right? Like Irv Smith Jr., how many injuries does he need? Like Gerald Everett, how many injuries does he need, right? So
Yep.
he's got the possibility, but I feel like the worst case scenario is he's third, and you're still starting him every week. So if you want to be safe, go with TJ Hawkinson. If you want to go crazy, maybe you go for a guy like Darren Waller and say, hey, I want second is nice, but what about first, right, Jeff?
Yep, I agree. I think Waller might have the higher ceiling, but definitely a lot more riskier,
Yeah.
just because of his history and being on a new team. You still don't quite know what's going to happen with him there in New York. Learn a new offense. Is Daniel Jones going to have a great rapport with him? Who knows? Still a lot of questions to be answered, but he definitely is really intriguing, though. I mean, he could have a monster season if all goes well for him.
Right. And just the fact we've seen it before. We saw it before, right? With the when he was the top dog for the Raiders all those years when, Antonio Brown, of course, found his way off the team, right? And then they kind of whiffed on a lot of draft picks. So he was the top guy with no competition for a long time. And now he goes to a team, like you said, Wan'Dale Robinson coming off the knee, Sterling Shepard coming off a number of different injuries. Isaiah Hodgins being a undrafted free agent that's fairly unproven. Jalen Hyatt, of course, won a Fred Biletnikoff award-winning, wide receiver, but a rookie himself. So, there's not too much competition where you can say, well, he's third behind these guys. I feel pretty good about drafting Waller. And again, at tight end is the one position where I don't care about floor. I truly don't. I only care about upside.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's a couple guys that fit the bill of guys that, can get opportunity this year, and one of them for me is David Njoku. I think he's a guy that, after Amari Cooper, they have had struggles finding a number 2 receiver, so I think he could rack up the targets with Watson, Jawan Johnson as well in New Orleans, not to talk about guys that haven't been drafted too much, but he's another guy that intrigues me too. I don't know what your feelings are about him at all, but I just think he could have a good season just because I don't trust Michael Thomas to stay healthy. And based on his history, I like Carr as his QB.
Right. I mean, again, I talked about the injuries and the health guys being healthy now and all that. But I mean, hey, if you're at a certain point, you have to say who's most likely to get hurt of the healthy guys. I mean, Michael Thomas with his history, he's got to be somewhere on that list, right? Guys like Raheem Mostert that have hurt every year.
Yep.
So I'm with you. But David Njoku for me, I mean, if we were going to pick a tight end to put in the dictionary next to the picture, if you're going to have a picture, right, that where they says tight end, I would just have like shirtless David Njoku there. Like that's the exact example, right? He's a monster, and again, after Amari Cooper, who knows? And for me personally, Jeff, I'll give you a little glimpse behind the paywall. All right. Over at fantasyalarm.com, I do the tight end. At Fantasy Alarm, we take DFS very seriously. We had a guy win $1 million last year, millionaire Mike. He bought a boat. We have guys win 200,000. We don't even retweet it if you win like $50,000. Like honestly, we got too many big winners over there. And one of the big secrets we have is that a lot of sites, they'll just have one person putting together lineups and they say, oh, here's my lineup and these are the guys I like. We have individual analysts looking at each position and scouring the position to give you the best, and then you could pull lineups from that. So I focus just on tight end. John and Pemba focuses just on quarterback. You're not going to get watered down analysis. You're going to get people taking it very seriously. So the glimpse behind the paywall is that's for Fantasy Alarm members. My article comes out Thursday on tight ends, and David Njoku is absolutely in there for DFS. 4,200 on DraftKings, and he's going up against the Bengals in what should be a shootout. And people forget the Bengals not only lost Jesse Bates, but they also lost Von Bell. So both of their starting safeties from last year, guys that played nearly 100% of the snaps, they're out this year. Brand new safeties. And that's where a guy like David Njoku, he gets loose down the middle with his size and speed. He could pull off some big chunk plays. So I'm feeling good about Njoku, definitely in week 1 lineups for sure.
Yeah, he has a good early season schedule. I was looking at that because I am doing a guillotine league, which is new to me. So I was trying to examine early season schedule so I can stay in things. But that was one guy that I was kind of looking to target in that draft I have tomorrow night. So that should be interesting. I've never done a guillotine league, so that should be a new experience for me.
They're crazy. I have one that I've done 2 years in a row. The first year I was too conservative. And then last year I flew a little too close to the sun, Jeff. I was I was drafting injured guys, suspended guys. It was just like, I kind of flipped it around where I was like, the first year I was like, I'm not taking any injured guys, I'm not taking any suspended guys. Then last year I was like, you know what? I was like, everyone's going to be doing that and they're going to fall. So I'm going to get right. I galaxy brained it last year. I think I got cut in the second
Oh
week.
no.
So, yeah. You need a balance there, Jeff. You need a balance.
I could see that.
Yeah, and I see our producer Heavy T in the chat saying, "I've been drafting a lot of Sam Laporta because of you, Coop. Don't let me down." That's right. I got people dependent on me, Jeff, doing the yin yang tight end. And I'll tell you what, Heavy T, I'm usually the one that fades the rookie tight ends. This year, though, conditions are kind of perfect. I mean, as far as the top 2 target game, at least early on, Sam Laporta's got a path. Dalton Kincaid, I mean, he's going to play slot for Josh Allen. I watched a 30, 31, and 32-year-old Cole Beasley have back-to-back 100-plus target seasons playing in that slot role. And I went and looked back at it. He didn't play more than 70% of the snaps in any of those seasons. Wasn't even a full-time player. So, yeah, give me Dalton Kincaid in the slot with Josh Allen all day long. I'm willing to take that risk because if you look at last year, tight end 7 to tight end 15, the difference between tight end 7 and 15 was 13 points in this format. That's it. It doesn't matter. The year before that, the difference between tight end 8 and tight end 11 was less than 1 point. That's why, Jeff, I say I don't care about floor at that particular position. All I care about is ceiling because there are tight ends that we can pick up off waivers and start lying all over the ground. And that's the end of my tight end spiel for these first 6 rounds.
No, I agree with you. I usually fall, to that pattern as well in my drafts. I usually wait a little bit and take a guy like Njoku or Evan Ingram. I just think, like you said, you can pair them with guys, go with guys that have high weekly ceilings that can get it done. I mean, I even look at Luke Musgrave with Green Bay, another rookie. I think he could have some big games too, just because their situation. I don't trust their receivers in Green Bay still with, Watson and Dobbs as their top 2 guys. I still think Musgrave could get some targets as well. So I think a lot of these rookies could be better than expected this year.
And don't look now, Jeff, but Romeo Doubs is banged up and unlikely to play week 1. So we're already going to get in there with a new quarterback, Jordan Love. First couple games, build that rapport. Maybe you don't give that target share back. Maybe you don't give it back. So that's where I'm at. I have a tight end article up there that I do every single year. It's called Yin and Yang Tight End, and I update it every week. So today I sent it into the editors. It should be coming out this evening, hopefully this evening, if not first thing tomorrow, updating that. But the idea of the yin and yang tight end is if you wait on tight end to draft 2, you basically just pick a guy that you can start for the first couple weeks and not get absolutely clobbered, right? And then you take the highest risk, highest reward guy on the bench, and then hopefully he breaks out. So for instance, last year we were taking Zach Ertz. He was the best for the yin and yang tight end strategy since I've been doing this for 4 years. I've never had a better option than Zach Ertz last year because we had 6 games with a suspended DeAndre Hopkins. We had 6 games to start this guy and figure out what to do next. So, and for 6 games, he was the tight end 3. And then when Hopkins came back, the targets trickled down a little bit and then he got hurt. So he did his job though, right? And on the flip side, right, people always ask me, why don't I just draft the upside guy and start him? Well, if you do that, then sometimes what happens is you start Cole Kmet last year and he got zeros back to back for the first 2 weeks. So that's why we do the yin and yang. It's a little balanced approach to give us some upside. This year we're looking at waiting and taking guys like, if I take Evan Ingram or if I get good value on Evan Ingram or Pat Freiermuth or David Njoku, I start him week 1. We just talked about we love the matchup for Njoku. And then if possible, I throw it at Kincaid or a Chigakonkwo or Laporta on the bench and just hope I catch lightning in a bottle. And if I don't, I just start those guys for the rest of the year. So that's my move there. But enough on that strategy. We've got guys here drafting $2,000 teams on RT Sports. We're through 6 rounds. Here's a recap of round 6 for everybody if you're just kind of listening and hanging out. Breece Hall, Deontay Johnson, Russell Wilson, Mike Williams, George Pickens, Damian Pierce, Alexander Madison, Derek Carr, Darren Waller, Brandon Ayuk, Dallas Goedert, Cam Akers, And Jeff, I will say the quarterback game of chicken is well underway between four of these teams now. There are four remaining teams that don't have two quarterbacks yet. And basically it now we're in that spot that's no different than your single QB hometown league where you see how long you can go before one of these other guys gets frustrated and just takes a third quarterback and tries to make you pay for it. So interesting to see where this is going to go. Interesting to see where it's going to go.
That might happen. You're right. Some team may take a third QB just to mess with one of these other teams. That would really handicap them if a couple teams would do that. But you got to make them pay. I think.
I think you do.
I don't know how much longer I can wait around. I've said this earlier when these guys were trying to draft their first one. But man, it's getting thin in a hurry right now. It's getting really thin.
Yeah, I'll tell you, team number 9 here, investment. He's in a position because the other teams with the one QB are down. Well, actually, he's right next to another guy. So the Riddler or investment here are in a unique position to double tap QB and really potentially hurt the guys at the end if they wanted to go 3. Like if your only QB was Kirk Cousins, if you take 2 guys here, you're not only setting yourself up to find that second QB every week or at least play matchups, but you're really hurting the teams at the end that only have one. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I wanted to ask you about a couple of picks last round because these ones are interesting to me in that sometimes they go flipped. And I have my guy. I want to know which one you like better. And I'm talking about the Steelers wide receivers, Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. In this case, Deontay Johnson went 3 picks before Pickens. I mean, the hype around George Pickens is gotten wild with the highlights and everything. What are your thoughts on these 2 guys, and which one do you prefer if they're going to go with the same spot like they just did?
So I feel like Johnson's finally getting some more respect, and he's moving up draft boards. I think earlier in the season you would get him not in a Superflex league, 8th, 9th round. So he's finally going a little earlier. I mean, I would take Johnson before Pickens personally. I think Pickens could be splashier, have maybe more big games, but overall, Johnson's going to be more consistent. And his touchdowns, that was just an aberration last year. It's not going to happen again. I mean, that offense is going to be better. He racks up a ton of targets on a weekly basis. I think he could push 100 catches, and he's not going to go without a touchdown if he does that. I mean, I think you can pencil him in for 5 to 6 at least, and hopefully he pushes that even higher. But you get 5 to 6 touchdowns and near 100 catches. That's a heck of a season right there. I'd take Johnson all day over Pickett.
For sure. I'm fully with you on that. I'm glad. Dude, no, don't be sorry because it's been driving me nuts since they did that. When they drafted the Pickett and Pickens combo, it's just like, come on, give us a break as analysts. You know what I mean? Like, did they really have to do that? Come on now.
Just messing with us.
That's what I'm saying, dude. That's what I'm saying. It drives me wild. There's some of them where so little things like that as a writer or a commentator, especially as a writer, all the different spellings of certain names like Zach and Devonta, it's just can we get a uniform, please? It's just the old what is the Zach, whether it's an H or a K, is just something that I really need to sit down and remember which one is which. But I digress. I'll tell you what, I think that what it's going to end up looking like with Deontay Johnson and George Pickens is similar to what we have with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, where Keenan Allen's the target guy, right? Deontay Johnson has 140 plus targets 3 years in a row. He's maybe a lower ADOT target guy. And then George Pickens is the Mike Williams, where he's the contested catch, chunk play guy, and he makes the highlights and maybe has a couple really fun touchdowns, but is it going to be consistent from week to week? And that's where I'm with you that I chase the targets. The highlights are fun, the George Pickens and Jahan Dotson, but I'm a target guy myself. So I'm taking the Keenan Allens and the Deontay Johnsons and the Terry McLaurins of the world instead of the Mike Williams and George Pickens and Jahan Dotson, unless it's a best ball or maybe a standard league. Then maybe you go for touchdowns and all that. But nah, I like chasing the targets.
Yeah, best ball leagues, you can take more chances, try to get those high upside guys, and you can get away with their bad weeks in that format where you don't have to start them every week. But like you said, I'm the same way. I'd rather go for the targets. Give me the consistency. Amon-Ra St. Brown's another guy I really like a lot this year because of that. I think he's going to have a monster season as well. So I like the target guys for sure.
Yeah. So we're coming up on the end of the 7th round, and I'm gonna call this round, Jeff, the enough is enough round. Right. So you've got Javon. The team's just saying, "Hey, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm taking this guy." With some question marks. So you got Javonte Williams, of course, coming off the knee. Drake London with the quarterback questions. Tyler Lockett. You have Terry McLaurin dealing with some turf toe. Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins. The one of our single QB teams did the smart thing here. They took Brock Purdy to go with Lamar Jackson. I really like that pick. Then you have Rashad White and 2 more enough is enough picks with Jonathan Taylor and Alvin Kamara. Again, I kind of personally, I'm looking around at what's going on with Mahomes and Cup and Taylor, and I'm starting to look at Alvin Kamara and the 3 games, but he's going to come back healthy. And I'm saying that doesn't sound so bad all of a sudden, right?
No, not so bad, but it's my RB2, which is what this guy did. That scares me a little bit, but
I mean,
you know, just
technically, he doesn't have an RB2 yet, right?
that's
Like
true.
if you
Yeah.
take Alvin Kamara, you that's a bench spot.
Yep, exactly. I mean, Kamara is intriguing to me though, because he kind of faded down the stretch a little bit last year, but maybe the suspension's not a terrible thing for him to, be fresh for the whole season. He's getting older, has a lot of touches under his belt, so maybe that's not the worst thing in the world for him. I think the value's good for him at this spot though.
Yeah, I like it here, but you're right. Like if this were a team that had 2 running backs already and then took Kamara, you're playing with house money.
Yep.
And to give you guys an idea, say you're looking at Team Crazy Jam here. It's not you start 9 in this league, but there's no kicker and no defense. So you start. It's a super flex, meaning you can start 1 quarterback spot and then a spot that is you can start any player, running back, uh, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, and for all intents and purposes, it's mostly a 2 QB league. Most people are going to be starting a quarterback in that spot. Oh, you can't get away with starting any other player there, and people need to remember that you don't have to start a QB there. But so a team like Crazy Jam, he's going to have his lineup right now would be Herbert and Wilson in the lineup, all 3 wide receivers in the 3 wide receiver spots, Ramondre Stevenson in the RB spot, and Kamara on the bench. And he actually, for his starting lineup, the next running back he picks will be in his starting lineup. The tight end he picks will be in his starting lineup. And then the next position player after that will be in the flex. So these leagues are pretty rowdy, Jeff. Like the next 3 players are most likely in his lineup. And if he wants to take another, I guess if he takes anything but quarterback, that player goes right into his lineup. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the way his team shakes out. I'm kind of anxious to see these next 3 picks for him because of exactly what you mentioned. But that's what makes these leagues fun. You have to make some tough decisions early in the draft, and it definitely shapes your roster going forward. So it'll be neat to see what Crazy Jam does. So he went ahead and got his RB2 with James Conner, which isn't, I mean, it's not a terrible pick if he can tread water for the first 3 weeks. We all know Connor. Again, you can't predict injuries like you said, but
Right.
he's another guy
he goes on that
another
list.
guy that scares you. But early in the season,
he's never played every game in a season, Jeff.
Yep.
Never played. So in that instance, I guess you can say, well, okay,
But if you need somebody to play for 3 weeks while Kamara is suspended, I mean, Connor could be a good guy, especially with their QB situation. They're probably going to run the ball a lot. You don't even know who's starting for them at this point. So it might not be a bad strategy that what Crazy Jam did there.
If you need a guy to play 3 weeks for you, James Conner can give you 2. I shouldn't be saying that because I do have a lot of James Conner myself. So I take that back. I take that back. This is the year that James Conner puts it all together. And to your point, Jeff, we always try, I have a saying that, that Howard Bender and I like saying, which is that running is the luxury of the winning team. So if you do to get a season like Todd Gurley or, a complete face melter season, you do need a guy that catches balls and also where the team is good enough to get you the touchdowns and stuff. I look at Todd Gurley as a perfect example where that team went 4-12 and he had 260 some odd carries and only ran for 800 yards. And the very next year, the team was better and he had the same number of carries and ran for like 1,300 yards and a lot more touchdowns just because the team was better. That said, we have seen teams in these bridge years just say, hey, you know what? We're playing with whoever's here. And you see James Robinson, even though the team's losing a ton of games, they just say, hey, you know what? You're our best player, James. We're just going to lean on you. Or Damian Pierce last year with the Texans. They're like, hey, we know we're coming in last place. We need a quarterback. Don't You're our best player. Don't care. Go get that angry run award. And we've seen sometimes you can have those years where they just lean on the guys they have. So I wouldn't rule James Conner out, especially compared to, I guess the game here is, do you pick the bell cow back on the bad team, or do you go for a split back on a better team? And I personally, I do go for the bell cows. I don't know about you, Jeff.
Yeah, if it's that situation where they're a bell cow or split, I definitely would go with the bell cow just because the opportunity, and I think that means a lot. But if it's a similar situation to two guys who are splitting carries, one's on a bad team, one's on a good team, I think that's easier to go with the guy on the good team. But I'll go with the bell cow back over the guy in a possible platoon situation. And we see now, Cooper, we talked about, we have two teams now that have three QBs. So they're definitely putting the pressure on team two here, team 1 and 2, which only have one QBs at
Yeah.
this point.
I mentioned that, like the Riddler went with what I had mentioned last round as something I would
Yep.
do, which is, you know what? I waited on QB and they're going to let me take two. So I'm going to put the screws to these guys and I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Brock Purdy, Matt Stafford. Now all I need is one of those guys to be the guy. And I mean, I've watched Brock Purdy. I don't know if it was a barrage or what. I watched Brock Purdy come out last year and lead that team to a bunch of wins in a row and have two touchdowns, passing touchdowns in every game. He had two passing touchdowns in every one of those games, at least two. So it's not crazy that Brock Purdy might just be good. The team is amazing. That's the part of it that has me drafting Christian McCaffrey and has me drafting Purdy, is that how many teams out there do you look around and say, this team not only has one of the best players at some of the positions, but the best player, right? They have the best running back. They have the best fullback. They have the best left tackle in Trent Williams, right? They have arguably the best two-way tight end in George Pickens. They have arguably one of the best pass rushers in Nick Bosa. Like, there's 32 teams, and this team happens to have like five dudes that are the best at the position. That's why Brock Purdy, for me, all he has to do is stay alive. And he's cracking two quarterback lineups all day long, right?
I agree. He was so consistent last year. Even if his passing numbers weren't great, it didn't matter. He was scoring touchdowns on a weekly basis. And you can't forget to mention too, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. I think they're two of the better receiver duo. That's one of the better receiver duos in all of football. I think Ayuk gets overlooked at times, but man, he had a big season last year. Apparently, he's in great shape this year as well. And Samuel had a down year. He was kind of banged up last year, so I think that kind of played into it as well. So if he comes back healthy and you have those two as well, man, that's a potent offense. Like you said, they're one of the most talented teams in all of football. Definitely.
Yeah, I guess you could say whatever it is, whatever position it is that Debo plays, he's the best at it, right? Like, he's the best. Actually, I guess maybe Austin Eckler is the best at that position, but the hybrid. But like, whatever it is Debo is, you could argue that he's the best at it. I mean, there's how many other guys are getting 5 targets and getting 3, 4, 5 carries? And I went back and looked at it. Even when Christian McCaffrey came back, he's getting a carry or two a game minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem that I run into with Debo and why I'm not really drafting him in this format is I hate the idea. I like consistency. I talked about it with Deontay Johnson. I like to be able to set my lineup and say, this is what I expect from this player. And with guys like Taysom Hill and guys like Deebo Samuel, I know they're going to do something interesting and do something special. But the question is when, right? Like, it's interesting for DFS to say, hey, maybe this is a week that he has 2 receiving touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. And the format really where these guys crush is best ball, right? Where you get all the good and none of the bad. The problem I run into is saying, okay, you can't look at the opponent and say now would be a good time for Taysom Hill to score a wildcat touchdown, right? Or like, this is going to be the week that Debo had, he doesn't have 2 carries for 4 yards. This is the week where he has 4 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown. It's just, there's nothing that I can look at analysis wise to tell me now is the time. And that's why I shy away on in these leagues where I set my lineup. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even if you I mean, if you end up drafting Samuel, you have to play him every week too.
You have to.
Hill at least is a guy you can platoon, but Samuel you got to play every week. And you're right, he can be scary, a little bit of a headache, disappearing at times. I'd rather go with the consistency as well.
Yeah,
Hill's kind of a sore subject around here too. Can't bring him up. I mean, he just changed his position again. He screws everything up for
he
us over here.
does.
We mentioned today. We just wish he would retire. That's what we said.
No, I swear, the platform community and the tight end community, we need to come together on this, because they're asking me, they're like, where do you rank Taysom Hill? And I look at my spreadsheet and I'm like, it's week 13, and I'm like, this guy's 4 targets. I'm like, where do you want me to rank? What do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do? I have him ranked in the same spot that I have him ranked every week. If the building's on fire, then start Taysom Hill. Otherwise, start a normal player, right? So, like, yeah, I'm with you, man. Let's no more Taysom Hill. Get him out of here. Or the best suggestion I ever heard was treat him the way the DH is treated in fantasy baseball, and just designate him flex, and you could start him.
I like that.
Yeah, so he's just the flex, just like you have the DH spot in fantasy baseball, and you can start anybody there, first baseman, second baseman, but you can only start DHs there. Make him the flex, and if you want to start him at the flex, go ahead, but you can't start him at quarterback, and you can't start him at tight end, and you can't start him at running back. Like, that's my solution to the problem. You can take that to the guys at RT Sports there.
Yeah, our solution may be too. We may be implementing this next year. I don't want to spill the beans, but let commissioners decide some position spots, so then we can push it off on them, which would be nice. And but in these standard leagues, it would still be on us, though. Unfortunately, like in these money leagues, I should say. But in your commissioner leagues, we're hoping to implement it to where you can maybe change the position of a player.
That'd be a nice wrinkle. I like that. Yeah. Dude. Until you get the emails from people being like, the commissioner of my league just changed it. Justin Jefferson. He started Justin Jefferson at tight end. Yeah. Right. It'd be like, I still remember, I actually have a Marquise Colston jersey in my closet, and I have the Colston jersey in my closet because it's right there. It's actually right here. I own this Marquise Colston jersey because one year when I was playing fantasy with my buddies, when I first, pretty early on, he was drafted out of Hofstra, and a couple teams were scouting him to play tight end. And on the platform we played on, they made him a tight end, and they never changed it. So for that year, I got to start Marquise Colston. I believe he played 1 inline snap on the entire season. I got to play Marquise Colston as my tight end. And in our format, he finished as a tight end 1. And the tight end 2 and 3, the kid I was playing in the championship had the tight end 2 in his lineup, Tony Gonzalez. And the tight end 3 was like Antonio Gates. So I won the league, and I took the money that I won the league with, and I bought this just to rub it in my boy's face that Marquise Colston. Yeah. So that's my Colston story. Anyway, the story of this draft, the 8th round is now in the books. Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, James Conner, as we mentioned, Jahan Dotson comes off, JSN, Matthew Stafford, Jordan Addison, Jordan Love. So Matthew Stafford and Jordan Love there, for those just listening, were the 2 teams taken as the 3rd quarterbacks for their team, with a couple teams at the end here only having 1 quarterback each. With Gabriel Davis after that, Sky Moore, Dalvin Cook, and then at the swing here are there's been 3 holdouts at quarterback. 2 of them said they're getting it done here. So the guy at the first pick, Patrick Mahomes owner, took Sam Howell and Mac Jones. And then the next guy at 2, who waited and took Jared Goff, he's got his second quarterback as well with Jimmy Garoppolo. When you look at those 2 teams that really push the envelope at quarterback, which one would you be more comfortable with of those 2 squads?
I like the first one just a little more. I don't like either really running back situation much. Dalvin Cook is the number 2, scares me. Javonte Williams, Cam Akers is the 2 backs as well. But I mean, when you wait till round 6, something's got to give. But if I'm going with the number 2 QB, I think I'd rather have the Sam Howell, Mac Jones platoon situation than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you 100%. And I'll say this. I mean, these guys definitely are willing to push the envelope, right? Especially like team 1 there with Javonte Williams, who could start out slow. Travis Kelce, who might not play this week, right? He
Yep.
could, and the thing is, when you take 3 quarterbacks like that, he has now drafted a bench player, where he hasn't actually filled his starting lineup yet. You're going to have 2 quarterbacks in there, and you're going to have all 3 of those wide receivers, and you're going to have both those running backs, and Travis Kelce, if he plays, but he actually still needs to draft his regular flex and possibly also a tight end. So yeah, and the next team, he's taking Dalvin Cook fresh off shoulder surgery as well. So these guys not scared to chase the upside. If they can survive, if a team like the first team, if they can survive the first couple weeks, that team could be really scary though.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely tremendous ceiling going forward. A lot of high powered players on that team. I mean, I look at team 2 and I may have leaned like even Brian Robinson, even though I think Cook might have more potential through the course of the season. But if you need a number 2 and you have to wait so long, I mean, I know Robinson's not flashy, but at least he's going to start and likely get the goal line work. I might have leaned him over Cook personally,
Right.
with that pick.
And the thing is, if you're planning to try and piece it together off waivers, right, and you're going to try and be the big waiver guy, well, Brian Robinson, week 1, he's getting the Arizona Cardinals. Yep. And if we're going to talk about a guy that's the early down back on a team, you want him playing a team like the Cardinals, right? Like that team, they're losing on purpose. I think the last I checked, the over under was set at 4.5 in a 17 game season. And that might actually be a little too high. You know what I mean? Like they are trying to come in dead last. And the team that usually comes in last usually wins 1 or 2 games. I don't know if I have the stones myself to bet the under on a line like that, but that is, they're saying that team's going to be bad. Now, the quarterback situation, Jonathan Gannon has decided that it is a quote unquote competitive advantage to not name a quarterback on checking my calendar here Tuesday before the season starts on Thursday, their season on Sunday. I mean, what kind of a competitive advantage does he think he's going to get here? And I mean, does he even want to win games?
The advantage is the other team having to play one of these guys. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what the heck? I don't know what advantage they think they're going to be getting.
It's crazy.
I don't get it. It's baffling to me. It's a strange situation. I mean, they have so much money tied up in Kyler Murray, and now it seems like they want to move on from him already. So it's just a bad situation in Arizona.
Did you see the third curveball thrown in there? The players voted on captains this week, and you saw who was captain, right?
I did. You're gonna have to refresh my memory. I remember reading the story, but I can't remember who it was.
Kyler Murray.
Oh,
so
yeah.
The players, the Kyler Murray's camp says he's playing. I'm sure he wants to play and protect his job from Caleb Williams. And the rumors around the team are that he's not playing, and his teammates are saying whether he's playing or not, this guy's the leader of the team. So good start for Jonathan Gannon, I would say.
Yeah, it seems like he really has that locker room. I saw those clips on Twitter too, where everybody was like ignoring him already, and it's not even a game into the season. Not a good situation.
That speech was brought me a great deal of pain. Jonathan Gannon, I will say, I think he's a brilliant football mind, and at the very least, a great defensive coach, and will be a guy within this league for quite some time. Whether he's head coach material, that's why you bring him in to see. Like at the worst case scenario, he'll end up being a defensive coordinator somewhere. Sometimes guys, they don't pan out as coaches. I mean, like Wade Phillips tried a bunch of times, right? Like he was just a defensive coordinator, and he is was a great defensive coordinator. Chan Gailey, our Patriots, we're now seeing once again that Josh McDaniels might be better at offensive coordinator than he is at head coach. So we'll have to see. But you know what? I like to give him the benefit of doubt, right? We got to give him a chance.
Yep, I agree. And somebody's been listening to us or at least you, Coop, because Dalton Kincaid just went before Kyle Pitts in the 9th round. You see that?
That is wild, man. Yeah, that guy must follow me on Twitter. So, gang, baby. Let's go. I mean, I'm telling you, I've been doing this for a while now, and I've been doing the research on tight ends every single year, and I've got stats, proven stats that regardless of what you say of my opinion, the stats are the stats. Like every top 5 tight end in this format, this PPR format, has had either 90 targets or 10 touchdowns, and that's going back to 2003. So that's a 20-year stat. You need 90 targets or 10 touchdowns, right? And a lot of these other stats, I drop them because they're time tested and they're proven. That's not the top 2 target stat. That's not an opinion. Like, those are the numbers. So when I look for certain things and fade certain players, I do it for a reason. And I'm the one that fades the rookie tight ends. So if I'm in on Dalton Kincaid, there's math behind it. There's reasons behind it. And in this particular case, I'm in. It's incredibly rare. But people tell me that rookie tight ends can't do anything. Well, I just watched Kyle Pitts have a 1,000-yard season 2 years ago. It's like, did we forget that he had a 1,000-yard season? The only tight ends currently in the league that have ever had a 1,000-yard season are Travis Kelce, who didn't have a 1,000-yard season until he was 27 years old. Zach Ertz, he has one 1,000-yard season. It came when he was 28 years old. He needed 150 targets, right? Kyle Pitts had one just last year, the year before last, at 21 years old. Darren Waller, George Kittle, and Jimmy Graham, because Jimmy Graham technically is in the league and he's on the Saints. Those are the guys, man. Like, that's it, dude. Dallas Goedert never had a 1,000-yard season. TJ Hawkinson has never had a 1,000-yard season. Hunter Henry, like, go around. Evan Ingram, these guys never had a 1,000-yard season. Pat Freiermuth, but Kyle Pitts has done it, and he did it at 21 years old. Dalton Kincaid, there's a possibility if he's going to play the slot for Josh Allen, like Brandon Beane says, there's a possibility that he has the best fantasy rookie tight end season we've ever seen. There's a world where that happens, and I think we might be living in that world. That's all I have to say. That's all.
And I think you're right with its usage too. Kincaid's going to be used different than most rookie tight ends if he's used out of the slot, and that's kind of how they used Pitts as a rookie as well. He wasn't as in line as much as some of these other guys. So I think you got to look to see how these guys are getting lined up, and I think it's a great call on Kincaid. I have a lot of stock on him as well, so I hope that you're right with that call.
Right, it's him. In my opinion, what you have here is the setup is going to look it's going to look more like the Eagles with Dallas Goedert in line. That's going to be Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid trying to be Zach Ertz out of the slot. Right, so the game for me is not it's not Kincaid versus Knox. In fact, I think now people, I hesitate to say this stuff on my Twitter because people don't understand where I'm coming from. But on a show like this, we could talk about it. I think it would actually be bad for Dalton Kincaid if Dawson Knox were to get hurt. I think it's straight up. People are like, oh, well, if he gets hurt, it's wheels up. I think that would actually be bad. We don't want Dalton Kincaid putting his hand in the dirt and to have Khalil Shakur or Deontay Hardy playing the slot. We want our guy in the slot. We want the clunky guy in line, hanging out over there. We want it to be Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Dalton Kincaid. Those are the wide receivers. And one of those wide receivers I can start in the tight end spot for my fantasy league. Oh, yeah, wheels up, dude. And I'm willing to be wrong just for the upside. I'll chase the upside. So enough about Dalton Kincaid. Let me break down this round for you guys. Those just listening, round 9, Mac Jones, Jimmy G. We already talked about those two guys. Brian Robinson, David Montgomery off the board, George Kittle, Zay Flowers, DeAndre Swift. The big one you mentioned, Dalton Kincaid goes one pick before Kyle Pitts in the 9th round here. A couple teams taking their third quarterback here with Ryan Tannehill and CJ Stroud, and then Marquise Brown to wrap it up. So, a couple guys taking their third quarterback there. We talked so long though, we weren't able to hype up the last team taking their second quarterback. And they finally did. The team with Kirk Cousins takes Bryce Young. Going to have a rookie QB in his lineup. Jeff, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'd feel better if I had, Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen's my number one, but having Kirk Cousins, Bryce Young as your duo, that's scary. And that was a necessity pick at that point because, like you mentioned, there was two teams that took their third QB at the end of the 9th round. So there is not much left. He had to pull the trigger to get Young. Otherwise, he could have been left with who knows who.
Yeah, it's crazy. Is the other part of it is that we talk about how you don't have to start because it's not 2 QB at Superflex. You don't have to start a quarterback, but he also drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba, who has a broken arm. And I don't know, is he playing?
The reports are good that he's already out on the practice field and that he's looking good for week 1, so I think there is a possibility.
Yeah, so he's either going to be starting a rookie fresh off a broken arm in that flex spot, or he's starting a rookie quarterback. I think I just start Bryce Young. What do you think?
Yeah, I would just start Bryce Young. I mean, even if he, has a terrible game and ends up rushing for 50 yards, though, you're still getting double-digit points most likely, so it's
Right.
still better than Najigba getting you, 3 catches for 50 yards.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I'm there. So yeah, a lot of these. This is the round. So that round we just recapped was the ninth round, and you start 9 players in this format. There's no kickers or defenses. So when you look across this board right now, those of us on YouTube, those are starting lineups for a lot of those teams. And the teams that have 3 quarterbacks that you see there with the Joe Burrow and Jordan Love, Joe Burrow, Derek Carr, Jordan Love, Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy, Matt Stafford, those teams are starting the players they're taking in this 10th round. So that's the kind of format we're talking here, folks. This is not your work league, right? This is a $2,000 super flex draft that includes a regular flex and 3 wide receiver spots. You got to know what you're doing to some degree if you're going to put that money out.
Yeah, definitely. It's put up or shut up, as they say, and
For
it's
real.
a tough format for sure too. Because as I look at these teams and you try to figure out which one is the clear winner, and I don't have one. I mean, at this point of the draft, after about 10 rounds, there's a lot of similar teams. I mean, everyone I look at, there's some things I like, some things I don't like. It's tough to pick. Is there one that you're seeing that you're looking at that you kind of stands out to you at all?
So I am starting to, now that the quarterbacks have come around, I'm really starting to like this team that started with Lamar Jackson and got Brock Purdy. I'm actually liking the way that a lot of these teams look that went hero QB, kind of like the hero RB where you take one QB and then you wait a little bit. The Burrow Derek Carr team, the Justin Herbert Russell Wilson team. I don't mind. I don't mind if my second quarterback is Russell Wilson. I think that's okay. So yeah, now that we're fleshing these out, but I'm kind of with you, Jeff, that with drafts in general, I need to see like a couple more rounds because I like to not only like to see who you're starting, but how you use the next couple rounds to compensate for where you are weak, right?
Yep.
So for these teams, like right now, we're seeing it with we kind of criticized the team with Cam Akers and Javonte Williams. Well, I love Raheem Mostert. I'll start Raheem Mostert this week over Javonte Williams with going up against the Chargers, and there's a high scoring 50-point over under game, and Jeff Wilson started the season on IR. I'll throw Raheem Mostert right in the lineup. So you can't really criticize the first few rounds just yet until you see how they patch it together, right?
No, that's a fair point because I was looking at some of the teams. I'm like, man, I don't love their number 2 running back, but if they end up getting somebody like Mostert you just mentioned, or Cleo Herbert just went in around 10 as well. It's another guy I think is really good value later in drafts because he should get the 3 down work at least to start the year. So it's still to be this thing's still to be sorted out a little bit before we can pick a winner just yet.
For sure. And if folks out there watching this, if you're looking at this and you're like, this is crazy, either the fact that it's a $2,000 draft or that it's this, super flex format. If you go on RT Sports, you can either join leagues like this or you can create your own. You guys have crazy custom settings, right? You guys like have a ton of different options. As some of the most customizable stuff. So right now, if you go over, use promo code alarm 23, you can get set up. They'll match 100% of your deposit up to $200, and you can go and make your own leagues like this. But Jeff, you guys can do all sorts of crazy stuff over there, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our commissioner product's second to none, in my opinion. You can do all sorts of stuff there. But if you want to just create a league, you can do that as well. You can do your team size, you can do your roster size, you can do if you want to do super flex or PPR, you can do the amount of starters, you can do different scoring options, playoff options. You can design your own league, and then you can invite your friends if you want. And then if that doesn't fill, you can open it up to the public as well, and you can pick your draft time too. So it's a lot of fun. They're called Audible Fantasy Football. So if you do that, you can create a league on there and you can pick your different price points for that as well.
I love that because like this time of year, it's hard. It might be hard to get your crew together. It might be hard to, there's
Yep.
only a couple days left. Go out there, grab your good buddies, get a league started, open it up to the public, and just get this thing rocking. Or just jump in again. You don't have to jump into a $2,000 league if you don't want to. $5,000 one is what we covered the week before last. You can go in and play $5, $25, $100. You can do a best ball draft where you don't have to set your lineup all year. It sets it automatically for you. A lot of options over there. So make sure you go over to uh, rtsports.com/fantasy alarm. Use promo code alarm23. And again, if you're a first-time player on RT Sports, they'll match 100% of your deposit up to $200. That's a pretty good deal there. So
yeah, it's a great deal.
Yeah, can't beat it. So jump on in there. 10th round to recap. We're going from right to left here across your screen. Isaiah Pacheco, AJ Dillon, Michael Pittman, Samaje Perine, Bryce Young, Cortland Sutton, Treylon Burks, Khalil Herbert, Desmond Ritter, Pat Freiermuth, Antonio Gibson, Raheem Mostert. So I guess the new game now, lineup wise, is tight ends. Everyone's got two quarterbacks, right? Now we're back to the classic tight end waiting game. We got two teams that don't have anyone yet. And I'll say this, waiting on tight end, and again, you got to know your room, know your format, know your people you're playing with. If I'm the guy that drafted TJ Hawkinson, I'm probably feeling a little disappointed at how late you could have gotten guys like Kyle Pitts and guys like Dalton Kincaid. There has been some info on Kyle Pitts that trickled out a little bit, where beat writers have been saying he's going to be an inline tight end, and he might be fourth on the team in touches behind Drake London and Bijan and Tyler Algier. Even, I mean, that scares you a little bit. But I mean, are beat writers really that in tune with who's going to get touch totals? It's hard to say.
I agree with that. I was a little taken aback by that when I read that as well, but I don't know if I put a ton of stock into that. I put more into it if they're, I'd rather hear the practice reports on how they're doing in training camp and how they look and what type of shape they're in, and if they're, torching defenders on a daily basis. I'd rather do that than having beat writers predict the touches.
Now, I will say, when it comes to Panthers, if it were Dio Ledbetter, the Orlando Ledbetter, he's one of my favorites. He's a beat writer over there. He's a funny guy, and he's really plugged in. If he were to come out and say that, maybe I would listen on that one, because I do know that he's pretty plugged in there. He's a funny guy, but outside of that, I don't know. So we'll have to see on that. I'm still taking Kyle Pitts, but my policy. I don't care about the floor. All I care about is the upside. So of course, Kyle Pitts is going to be a guy I'm considering. Right. There's your guy that just came off the board, David Njoku. That's good value, huh?
Yeah, I like that. Round 11. Like you said, I think that guy who took TJ Hawkinson in round 5 might be scratching his head a little bit, being able to get Pitts and Kittle 4 rounds later. Like you said, though, it's hard to know the room I'm guessing most of these guys don't know who these owners are. They may have drafted with them before. On our site, we have a lot of people that are in a lot of leagues, and so you see some familiar names, but for the most part, you don't know anybody you're drafting with. So it's tough to get a gauge on how certain positions are going to be filled out.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Again, if you were to do 10 drafts with me, which some of our Fantasy Alarm members have, if you are a Fantasy Alarm member and you're not set up with the Discord, definitely go over there and get set up with that, or hit me up on Twitter at Coop A Fiasco, COOPAFIASCO, and say, hey, I'm a member and I need to get in the Discord. I'll get you set up. You can do drafts with us. We do them all the time. We do them on RT Sports. We do them on a bunch of different pages. But I'll tell you what, if you do 10 drafts with me, I'm not drafting the same players every time, because there's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different builds. So you can never truly know what somebody's going to do. If even in these high stakes ones, if you draft with, say James Huntley one time, very next time you might do something totally different. So can never be too sure.
I agree. And a lot of times what I do is I test different formats out to do different things I normally don't do. I take a tight end, Travis Kelce with my first pick, and then maybe back that up with Mahomes and then see what my team builds like. And if I don't like that, I'll never do that again. Or if I go 3 receivers to start my draft, it's live and learn. You got to test different strategies out and see what works the best for you, and then go with that when the money's on the line.
Exactly. And if you only do one draft, that's why you hang out here with us and watch a few of these ones. If your draft is on Wednesday night, go, watch this one, you can get all the sleeper picks they're about to make here, and then go back and watch the one that you, me, and Britt Flynn did, which is a single QB league, and you could say, hey, you know what? Here's where I was. If you watch this one, say, oh, I'm surprised to see Dalton Kincaid go early. He went early in the other one too. So these sharp guys, they're not messing around. They're willing to take some risks. They're willing to see what can happen here. So here's the most recent round that just went, round 11. Elijah Moore, Michael Thomas, Devon Achane, Brandon Cooks, Zach Charbonnet, Quentin Johnston, David Njoku, Jalen Warren, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney, Elijah Mitchell, Jacoby Myers. Now, with Juju coming off the board, I got to ask you, Albert Breer recently said that Juju Smith-Schuster's, and this is a direct quote, so I don't want you, Jeff, to think that, or anyone listening, think that this is something that I am saying. Albert Breer's quote was that Juju Smith-Schuster's knee could explode at any time. So what do you take of that? I mean, what explode at any time?
I saw that. That's a little disheartening. I mean, I wasn't huge on him to begin with, but I do think some targets are there to be had for him just based on the receiver room. I think they're really going to target the tight end a lot this year in New England, but somebody else has to catch passes, and Juju could be the guy that plays that Edelman or Wes Welker role in that offense to get the targets. So if he's out there and playing and healthy, I think he's a guy to take a chance on around 11. But like you said, I saw that report as well. It's a little scary.
Don't like that, especially because the Patriots had Jacoby Myers, who seemed to me plenty good at being the Jacoby Myers on that team, and they decided to let him go and pay somebody else to come in and play that same role. So, man, I would have been happy if Juju was just Jacoby Myers, which is a player that I liked. This is as a Patriots fan, but if he can't stay healthy, I think, as you say, targets to be had. The last time that Bill O'Brien coached this team, 2011. Now, again, the quarterback at the time was Tom Brady. The tight end was Rob Gronkowski, that finished as the tight end 1. The other tight end was Aaron Hernandez. He finished as the tight end 3 in fantasy football. And all while that was going on, Wes Welker got 173 targets. So we've seen this particular offense, two of the best offenses of all time, 2011 Patriots and 2007 Patriots. Bill O'Brien was a part of that, but probably the biggest part was Tom Brady. That said, if they're trying to build something similar with Mac Jones, Hunter Henry as Gronk, Mike Gesicki as Aaron Hernandez, and Juju in that other role, he was in line for probably the most, outside the quarterback, maybe the most important role on this team. So if his knee is going to be a problem, this team is going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, I agree. They're really, really, really thin after him at the receiver spot. Like you mentioned, I like Jacoby Myers. I thought he was a solid player and a good fit for that team as well. And I was kind of surprised that you let him go and sign Smith-Schuster, who's kind of been a shell of himself the last few years, quite frankly. And I guess they're hoping he rekindles some of that past magic, but I might have gone with a younger guy who knows the offense over him.
Right. I mean, yeah, correct. Yeah, you got to trust in their evaluation and what they think is going on. And maybe, there's also the possibility that Josh McDaniels maybe overpaid Jacoby Myers too, where when you look at the contracts and how close they are, maybe it wouldn't have been that close. But even then, it's concerning to say the least to have this guy come in and already be hurt before the season even starts. So we'll have to see what happens there. But that's enough Patriots homerism for now. Right? So now we're seeing a lot more risks being taken, a lot more hype players being taken. We talked about Michael Thomas. You and I probably on different sides of the fence on where he can be on that. I'm holding on to my dusty memories of what Michael Thomas was a couple years ago, but I completely understand the risks there. And also new quarterback, Chris Olave, the whole gang. You're seeing rookies coming off the board with Achane, Charbonnet, Quentin Johnston. You're seeing Jalen Warren come off the board, which is this year's Twitter hype machine, I would say. And then injured players like Juju dealing with a knee, Kadarius Toney dealing with a knee. So a lot more risk being taken here, but this is the risk-taking range if you didn't take risks earlier. Some of the
Yep.
teams that took the risks earlier, they got to circle back and take the Raheem Mosterts, where that's what happens if you played it safe earlier. Now you can take the risks.
Yep, definitely. And Team 5, I kind of like what he did with getting Charbonnet. He has Kenneth Walker in round 5, so you got the handcuff there. In round 11, I kind of like the way his team has rounded out, if not for Cup. That Cup pick scares me, and that they only have 3 receivers right now. Just got Odell Beckham as his 4th, but overall, still that team's kind of was scaring us at first, but I like the way it's looking a little more right now.
I'll tell you what. I mean, he got a really good value on T. Higgins, right? That
Yeah.
helps. That helps a lot. He even said like, okay, you know what? We just got to steal on Higgins. We'll hold off for a bit. But I'll tell you what I just said a moment ago, where I said, hey, if you played it risky earlier, you got to go safety now. And that Team 5, he just said, nah. Right. He took Cooper Kupp, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, Kupp is, almost certainly out. The next person's in his lineup. He should go with somebody safe here. He takes Odell Beckham Jr. So he doesn't care one bit about safety, huh?
No, he's going for it. He has George Kittle too, so that's another risk,
Right.
another big risk. He's going for it all.
In a 15-round draft, it's crazy to think that the next couple picks might be in his lineup this week, right? Like Miles Sanders dealing with let's not forget he's dealing with a groin as well. But if Cooper Kupp and George Kittle don't play, then he's looking at taking a tight end that's going to be starting for him, and who knows with Odell whether he's willing to start him right now or not. What are your thoughts on Odell, and I guess just on the entirety of the Ravens wide receivers? We didn't see in this preseason. We saw no Mark Andrews, no Odell, no Rashad Bateman. Zay Flowers looked good, but again, not much from the other pass catchers. So, how are you feeling on these guys? Are you drafting them at all, or is there someone that stands out?
I'm staying away for the most part. Zay Flowers maybe a little bit, but I feel like he's getting his ADP is going up too rich for my blood at this point. I don't see them outside of Mark Andrews, any of these pass catchers being consistent options. We talked about that earlier in the passing game. I want consistency, and I think these guys are just going to be too up and down. Andrews is the guy in that offense that gets all the work and gets a ton of looks. And I think, 3 guys that are probably going to get a lot of playing time, Flowers, Beckham, and Bateman, that, I don't know if there's enough to spread it around for them to be consistent on a weekly basis. They're going to be too hit or miss, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like with it's almost like and Heavy T. Can we scroll up to the top just to see? We'll scroll down when we have to, but I want to see if we can see even the round above. Yeah, we'll scroll down when we have to. We don't have to look at those. No, you don't have to do the teams. Just down to so we can see the first round. Right, one more down. So we can yeah, there we go. We don't have to look at the empty spots down there. We can scroll. We can scroll when we get there. So I look around with a team like that, you almost hope that one guy does separate himself and the other guys are irrelevant, because it's worse if it's just spreading the ball around everywhere. And we know that John Harbaugh, there was one year where no wide receiver on the team played more than 62% of the snaps. And that was literally just a couple years ago. It was like Willie Snead was the leading, he had no problem using 5 tight ends and a fullback and rotating a bunch of guys around. So if they're going to do that and no one's going to play 97% of the snaps like Michael Pittman did last year, and they're all going to play 70% of the snaps and share the ball around and do all sorts of weird formations, that would be just awful. And I could absolutely see it happening because I've seen it before with Harbaugh, man.
That's why I said earlier, I don't know if I'm buying the whole air raid attack here and spreading the ball out. I still think they're going to be a run heavy team, with Jackson and Dobbins leading the way. So I'm not really buying it until I see it.
Yeah. Let's before we scroll down, let's take a look around. These guys really, there's a number of people in here that are that seem to be making stacking or at least just kind of like pairing guys with correlation a focal point here. You got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce on a squad here. I saw the Joe Burrow. So not only did he get a crazy deal on T. Higgins, but he had Joe Burrow too. They kind of let him have that one. You see anything else jump out to you in terms of correlation?
Yeah, I don't think that's as big in these leagues as it is, overall big contest. I like more of a stacking mentality. I think it makes sense when you're trying to maximize those points in the overall contest where you're trying to win big money and try to separate yourself from other people. So you love to have those stacks where guys can just go off in the championship game. So there are a couple stacks here overall, but not a ton.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
a lot of different approaches that we're seeing in this draft.
You're right. It's not as necessary. To me, it's more of like a tiebreaker type
Mhm.
thing than anything. You don't need to, even in best ball and in the leagues where it really matters. And for those, I should have mentioned this earlier. This is a contained league. So as Jeff mentioned, there are some leagues where there's big buy-ins, and then there's like a tournament style at the end where the one person that wins gets like $1 million. This is a contained 12-team league, 2 grand a pop, and the top few teams get paid out. The number one team obviously takes home the big money, but it's contained league. So you're not going to see too many of those. You're not going to see as much of the crazy stacking, and you're not going to see as much of the people caring at all about week 17 matchups and trying to go crazy, loading up a playoff schedule that you might see with the best balls and you might see with the tournaments, right?
Yeah, definitely. And to know what people are playing for in this league, it's $12,000 to the winner of the league, 6,000 for second place, and 4,000 for third. So it pays out 3 spots, $2,000 to get in, 12 grand to the winner.
That's nice. So you said third place walks away with two grand plus 2 grand.
Yep, plus two
Wow.
grand, four grand total.
That'd be nice, dude. Well, that's a nice little payday. Still even third place, walking away with 2 grand. The thing is, you got to put 2 grand up to get in.
That's true.
That's the difference maker. So to recap round 12, going from right to left here: Rashad Penny, Romeo Dubs, Jamal Williams, Rondell Moore, Tank Bigsby, Tajay Spears, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr., Nico Collins, Adam Thielen, Jarek McKinnon, Alan Lazard. I like that. I mean, again, team two we said, hey, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, that's a little risky. Antonio Gibson, Jarek McKinnon in a full PPR league, you can probably pull an RB2 out of there. You could definitely pull a
I
flex
agree.
play. So
Yep, I agree. I like McKinnon, especially early in the season. Pacheco's banged up a little bit, so maybe McKinnon gets a little more run early in the year as well. And he's kind of underrated at times because I don't think it's just going to be a backfield where Pacheco dominates. We know what the Chiefs have done the past few years. It has not been that way, and I expect it to be the same. And they really like McKinnon. We saw what he did down the stretch last year. He really carried a lot of fantasy teams during the playoffs. So don't discount him to have some big games.
right, he had 71 targets, right? So Eric Bieniemy calls 71 targets to Jarek McKinnon. Team two says that sounds pretty good to me. And hey, while we're at it, Eric Bieniemy is now going to be the coach of the Washington Commanders. So why not grab other Jarek McKinnon and Antonio Gibson, right? So
Yep.
there's a thought process there. There's a method behind the madness with some of these teams. So kind of love that idea. Would love if these guys would pick up the pace a little bit, and maybe we could get this whole draft together within 2 hours. Wouldn't that be nice, Jeff?
It would
You
be. It's a little bit of a slow draft, especially with it being, you don't have kickers and defenses. So you figured we could get this one in 2 hours. I don't know if it's going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's we're just hanging here, fly on the wall. You, as the RT sports guy, you had the keys to let us in the back door and see, kind of watch this one, what's going on. But I will say, you can't really rush guys when they're making $2,000 picks either, right? So
That's true.
uh,
We can't run them through it. They're putting a lot of money up, and I guess you can see why some of them are taking more time than others to make their pick.
Yeah, but you know what? At this stage, though, you kind of in get your guy mode. So maybe we can get through at least one more round here. That'd be nice. There's a few players. I mean, these guys are sharp. So the Tank Bigsby's of the world, the Tajay Spears of the world, they're not getting by anybody. The fact that Van Jefferson going is a recent with the Cooper Cup injury. Why not? Right, with Van
Mhm.
Jefferson. After Van Jefferson, is there anybody else? Obviously, Tyler Higbee. Oh my God, that's so just a bore. Just in a vacuum, I would have no interest in Tyler Higbee. But football's not played in a vacuum, and same thing with George Kittle and Pat Fryermuth. How we like them, but maybe not the situation. You got to lean in. But is there anybody outside those two, Jefferson and Higbee, that interests you at all?
And for the Rams, no. I mean, Tutu Atwell, you hear some talk about him a little bit, but I just I think Higbee is a guy that could be good while as much as like you said, you don't like to watch him play out there or he's not the best tight end in the world. But when Cup's out of the lineup, he gets targets. And as you know, with your being a tight end guy, there's only 4 tight ends with 100 plus targets last year. Higbee was one of them.
Right.
So he could get the work while Cup's out, at least early in the season. So he could be a good guy, at least early in the year. But for the long
It's
haul, I don't really trust him.
it pains me. It pains me because it's like picture you see my square here, right? Picture a graph, right? And on one side there's talent and not talented, and then this way you've got opportunity and not opportunity, right? At the top corner, Travis Kelsey has the talent and the opportunity, right? And then a guy like George Kittle, he's got the talent, but maybe not the opportunity. Higbee is in that corner where it's like, I don't know if the talent's there, but opportunity. And I just wish I could pick up some of these guys. I wish I could take Kyle Pitts and just move him into that spot where, can you imagine if we could trade Higbee for Pitts straight up? That would be a beautiful.
Oh man, that would be amazing. I agree. That,
Yeah.
like you said, it's all about opportunity, though. You got to be in the right situation. I look at Purdy. What would he be like on another team? I mean, I don't think he's a bad QB by any means, but he's in an opportune situation in San Francisco to just produce well, and it's all about opportunity, like you said.
It's huge, man. It's everything especially for a position like tight end. With wide receiver, if teams have 2, 3 wide receivers on the field at any given time, no problem. But tight end, it's tough. You could be Delaney Walker and be stuck behind Vernon Davis for 7 years, and then finally break out. Speaking of tight end, we've got a team here has not taken a tight end yet, and there's 2
Holy
rounds
cow.
left. Yeah, the Justin Herbert team here, and Tyler Higbee's available. There are a couple names available that intrigue me. So I wonder if maybe he's going to finish off his draft here with the old double tap, or maybe if he's just going to. Sometimes you just have a ringer, or sometimes he's going to stream. If I was going to go yin yang tight end with 2 remaining players, this is what I would do. I would take Tyler Higbee, and with plans to start him early, and I would take Sam Laporta, or Luke Musgrave, Sam Laporta or Musgrave, and just say, hey, you know what? Let's see if we can catch lightning in a bottle with a bench spot. But that's how I would handle it if I was this guy. Let's see what he does. I mean, he could also take another guy who is not the most athletic, but has a lot of opportunity in maybe a Dalton Schultz.
Yeah,
That's
Dalton
another
Schultz.
option.
Chiga
Yeah.
Konku's out there as well,
Yeah,
I
so
believe.
I was so in on him until they signed Hopkins. That
Yeah.
was a killer, man. But with the Treylon Burks knee, kind of banged up, I guess he's going to play, but there's a little glimmer of hope there. So we'll have to see what he does here. We're coming up on it ourselves here. We're probably gonna have to post a draft board. I know we're trying to keep it 2 hours for the programming window here. Before we do take off, I want to make sure to remind people that if this looks like the kind of league you would enjoy, and if you were looking at this board and saying, I would crush this draft. I'm amazing at this. These guys don't know what they're doing. Then go over to RT Sports, use promo code ALARM23, and they'll match 100% of your deposit up to $200. If you think you could beat me, even though I knew that guy was going to take Tyler Higbee just now, get over there. I'm on RT Sports. I'm hanging out. We're doing RT Sports drafts with the Fantasy Alarm members. So get set up and get ready to go. And Jeff, let them know you guys have a ton of different contests, not just $2,000, crazy high stakes leagues, but you have a ton of stuff, right?
We do. We have our big fantasy championship, which is $500,000 this year. That costs $300 to get in, but that also has league prizes. We have our best ball championships. We have our All-American games, which are just like your standard leagues. You can get in PPR Superflex. They're just $30. Play that out all season. Our best ball ones are so popular, especially at this time of year. People want to still draft. They don't want to do the league management because they've done all their other leagues with their buddies or their home league. So they just want to do another league and they want to do a draft. You can do the best ball one. You just draft your team. You don't have to worry about setting your lineup. We have different price points for that as well. So you name it, we offer it here at Real Time Fantasy Sports. Go to rtsports.com. Click on that money league link. You can see all the different drafts, and they're going off around the clock at this point. We're drafting all the way up until games start on Sunday as well. So you can watch that Thursday game and then draft your team too. I know some people like to do that, take advantage of some big games there.
That's right. Yeah, you get in even after that. So go over to rtsports.com/alarm. Use promo code alarm23, as I mentioned. Deposit match first time depositors up to $200. So get in there and get it going. Personally, I like to do all my drafts before the Thursday night draft. So I'll be in there hammering out a couple more tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday during the day, just to make sure I get a few more in there last minute drafts. Let's go.
That sounds good. We'd love to hear that. Hopefully other people are following suit like you are, Coop.
Dude, trust me, my crew over at Fantasy Alarm, the people that follow me on Twitter at Coupe Fiasco, and the people over on Reddit, we got a gang of sickos that are putting in the work. They're putting in the work, dude. And then that's the thing with the hashtag family is we take this seriously and we take down some prizes. So Jeff, just want to say thank you for joining us. You can follow Jeff over on Twitter at Jeff Paur. Thank you to Heavy T for helping us out today, producing this one, dude, crushing the board, crushing the work here. So thank you very much. And of course, thank you to Better Sports Network for letting us come on here and talk a little ball. That'll be it for us, guys. Thanks for joining us.